Hey, what's up, sports fans? Welcome back to the Guitar Slinger Hockey Channel. I have a long-awaited review about the CCM AS5 ASV Pro Supertacks stick. I wanted to provide you guys with some pros and cons about the stick, and I also wanted to compare it to its predecessor, the AS4 Pro. So I've been wanting to hold off a bit on making this video because I wanted to ensure that I had enough time to not only test it myself, but also let a number of different people try shooting that stick in addition to some other ones. And so now I feel like I'm in a position to speak to the goods and the bads of the ASV Pro, that's how I'll refer to it, ASV, compared to other sticks that are on the market, as well as if you're somebody that's coming from the AS4 Pro, I will speak to that too. So and I'm not going to bother with throwing a whole bunch of photographs in here. This is going to be more of a podcasty type of situation, something for you to listen to while you're stuck in traffic or wherever you're at. Anyways. So we'll go over that, and we'll kind of talk about it, and you can think about some of the things that I'm saying. And of course, as normal, go ahead and ask me the questions in the comments, and I will always get back to you. I will also be adding some timestamps in the description if you're interested in just kind of going right to a certain point in the video. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, if you weren't aware, the Supertacks line of sticks has for the most of its history been a mid kick point stick, although it has seen its days as kind of a dual kick point stick, as well as a high kick point stick, but it's kind of been mid-ish in its kick point. So you should know that. You should also know that the Supertacks, that line of sticks, I've always gravitated towards that model of a stick over the past. I'm not sure why, but I kind of was thinking about it recently, and looking back to the point in time when I got out of using wood sticks, which was a long time ago. For those of you who didn't know, I used wood sticks for 3 of my 4 seasons in college before finally transitioning to a composite stick for that 4th season. And obviously that's a pretty big change going from wood to composite sticks. And looking back at it, when the Supertacks line of sticks really caught my attention was way back in the time where they had the AS1. I was kind of fishing around for some different sticks at that time period and trying to figure out what was going to suit my game because I was struggling making the change from wood to composite sticks. I felt like there was an issue with pucks bouncing off the blades too much, and it was just a tough change, which if you're young, you don't have any recollection of that because you weren't using a wood stick. So the AS1 kind of caught my eye because I was using a CCM trigger prior to that, and getting a chance to shoot the AS1 back in the day, I noticed that it was very easy to hit my targets. I don't know what it was about that stick. I could pretty much pick corners with that stick where I could shoot fine with the trigger, but I just didn't have the same accuracy. And I think it related to how stiff the blade was in the AS1, as well as where the stick was flexing. That was giving me the ability to snipe the corners that I wanted to snipe. And looking back at why that might have been a thing is with wood sticks, you really had to put some stank on it to get the shots to come off. But the puck feel has always been amazing with wood blades. So there felt like there was some sort of connection between the CCM Supertacks line and wood sticks on how I shot how I basically loaded sticks and how I shot them. There was just a connection there that made the Supertacks line feel natural. And looking back, I've always gravitated towards Supertacks sticks. And for those of you who don't know, the CCM AS4 Pro, up until this point, has been my favorite stick. Every time I come back to that stick, it just feels very natural, and I enjoy using it. What I will say is I usually have two reactions when I let people try that stick. It's usually like, holy crap, this thing fires bombs. Or people are like, I hate this thing, I can't shoot it at all. It's very polarizing for some reason. I think I've kind of figured out why that is, and I will go into that a little bit. But if you want to see more, I would recommend taking a peek at one of my most recent videos about the best ever stick created by humans for the adult rec player. So go check that one out if you want to see that stick, but I kind of touch on it. Anyways, so I've been using the ASV Pro for, I don't know, I'm thinking a month at this point, which that is an extremely long-term review here compared to what most people are doing, where they'll grab it, they'll shoot a few pucks, and they're like, oh yeah, it's amazing, or it sucks, one of the two. But I've gotten a good chance to use these in a number of game scenarios, playing, between two, three, four times a week, depending on the situation. And so I'm feeling pretty comfortable about what it's doing well, and maybe the things that are may not be good for somebody watching this video. So getting into it, some of the other things you might need to know about it are the shaft dimensions are kind of strange on it. It does have that kind of this wedge shape that fits in your hand. Now, if you are somebody who has held a Bauer Nexus Geo or the Sync or the Bauer Ultrasonic, you know that they have some kind of different shape shaft designs going on. The same would be true of the STX Surgeon line too, that kind of has that lacrosse stick feel for the different sides. The Supertacks here, the ASV Pro, has something similar going on. They're still just using four sides that you're used to, but this is actually the only shaft dimension that's kind of different than the traditional four sides that you're used to, that actually is done right. It feels really natural, feels really good. It does lock your hand in place really well for any of the types of one-timers or slap shots that you'd want to take. And then if you like, taking wrist shots, snap shots, the shaft dimensions are normal, right around where it says the word tax in that gold area in the photograph that you're looking at right now. You put your hand there for your shots. It's a very natural, normal feeling shaft to help you with stick handling, to help you with the wrist shots, snapshots, that sort of thing. So I would say that it's probably the only stick that's had an odd shaft dimensions that are actually done quite well. The texturing and the grip on the stick are actually very, very nice too. Some of the best ones that are out there, in my opinion. CCM has definitely been doing a good job of that lately. So when I got this stick, as some of you might remember, it was because my Sherwood TMP Pro ended up breaking, and they weren't able to replace it with another one, and so they basically said, here, let's get you into one of these, and I was interested in trying one, so I was down for that. The moment I got it, I did notice that there was definitely, just by even holding it in comparison to the AS4 Pro, that it was, I'm not sure if it was a weight reduction on this stick, but the balance between the ASV Pro and the AS4 Pro was noticeable to me. This ASV Pro has a quite a bit nicer balance point to me than did the AS4 Pro, which surprised me. I didn't really think there'd be much of a difference there, but there was. Additionally, it does make the stick feel a little bit lighter, and in fact, the stick could be a little bit lighter than the AS4 Pro too. So I was pretty excited to use it. Got it out on the ice, and the first couple of shots I took with it just were wrist shots, just absolute darts. Bar down, picking corners. It was definitely, I was a big fan of it, for sure. And, I think that compared to other sticks that I was using, the JetSpeed FT5 Pro was my backup. This definitely is a superior stick to that one, in my opinion. And I think it's all coming down to specifically where this ASV Pro flexes. And just to kind of give you a little bit of insight onto how I'm holding the stick too, you might have heard that people hold their hands like closer together or further apart. I'm somebody who tends to carry my hands a little bit closer together for basically how I stick handle and how I shoot the puck. And the Tax is really conducive to that. Whereas the FT5 Pro does require my bottom hand to sit a little bit lower, which doesn't really feel natural to me unless I'm winding up for a one-timer or a slap shot. So that's something to keep in mind. Do you keep your hands a little bit closer together or further apart? If you keep them closer together, you might like the Tax, how it feels. Now, the with regard to how the stick performed on the variety of different shots that I've taken on it, to me, this stick does all of the shots better than the FT5 Pro does. And I know that's a little bit of a comparison difference here between the jet speed and to kind of put it up against the AS4 Pro, which is kind of the comparison point that you might be interested in. I would say that they actually have a similar power to them, I would say. I have heard a couple of people say they think that there's a little bit more juice behind the AS4 Pro. I would say that I personally couldn't tell much of a difference on the power. However, I will say that I do think that the ASV Pro releases the puck maybe a little bit quicker than does the AS4 Pro. So in that regard, so right now I'm telling you that the ASV Pro has better balance. It has a quicker release. Maybe negligible, but I think those are two things that it does excel at. And maybe the ASV Pro even has a lighter weight to it. I don't know. I don't care about that kind of stuff. It's just more about how it feels. I think that a deciding factor for somebody might be that if you don't like the way like an unusual shaft dimension feels, like you would have on the ASV Pro, that might kind of push you back towards the AS4 Pro. However, so far I can tell you this too: the ASV Pro has lasted me longer than the AS4 Pro does. And for a little bit of a reference here, I tend to blow out the blade on AS4 Pros. Basically, it kind of gets to the point where they start squeaking and whatever is rattling around inside of the blade. I don't typically explode shafts or destroy blades in the traditional fashion where you might snap a blade in half or whatever. I just load the stick so much that the blade just kind of wears out and turns squeaky on me, at least for the AS4 Pros. So that's something that you should be aware of. So far, the Tax, the ASV Pro has kind of hung in there longer than the AS4 Pros do for me. So that's maybe a little bit of a durability enhancement also. Regarding the blade on the ASV Pro, to me, it is a better blade for stick handling and puck control than that of the AS4 Pro. However, there's a little bit of a subjective nature to this particular point because I do think the AS4 Pro had there's more pop on that blade. So if you're somebody who really likes a lot of pop on your blade, you might actually prefer the AS4 Pro blade over the one that's on the ASV Pro. Now, if you've been using Supertacks and if you're the kind of person who's ever had a complaint that you liked the Supertacks but the blades are a little bit too lively for you, then you should pay attention to the ASV Pro because I think they solve that problem if you considered that a problem. If that was a problem that didn't need solving because you liked how poppy the other Supertacks models were, then be prepared for maybe a little bit more of a dampened feel on the ASV Pro blade. But I think it's an enhancement from my perspective. Okay, so kind of thinking about what I've experienced transitioning over to letting other people use the ASV Pro stick. So I've found it to be another very polarizing stick. So I I would say the majority of the people that have tried out my particular stick have not liked it. And I think the reason for that is the people that have not liked the stick are not necessarily people that have that high of a skill level. And so they may be not so comfortable with how to properly load a stick and that sort of thing. The people who have liked this stick know how to shoot. And so what that's making me think is that you definitely need to have some knowledge on how to load a stick, especially one of these mid-kick sticks, in order to get your money's worth out of it. Because I think that what I've noticed is that the more novice or intermediate skaters that have tried this stick out have struggled to get the shot away, and it seems slow, sluggish, dull, lacks power for those types of shooter. And once you give them something like a low kick point of a Bauer Vapor or a CCM trigger, or even the jet speed, they handle that really well. They can get the shot off, and they're not struggling as much with those sticks as they are with the Supertacks. And I've noticed this pretty much with every Supertack stick that I've ever owned that I've let somebody else try. When I was thinking about it, people really struggle with loading the stick to get that really snappy recoil out of it that it has. So you need to have that skill in order to unlock the potential of the stick is kind of the point. And so so as you're listening to this, what you might consider to ask yourself is, do you really know how to load the stick? If your answer is no, or I don't know, it's probably, you might want to hesitate on looking into this stick. However, if you're somebody who's like, I feel pretty comfortable with my one-timers, my slap shots, getting a lot of power and really flexing this stick, then you're probably going to love this thing. It's really a cool stick. I found that this has better. I can have more control over one-timers than I had with the AS4 Pro. I don't know why that is. It just is. I will say there's another little nuance here too. CCM has been making this latest run of sticks. They seem to be stiffer than their predecessors do. So the predecessors were. So the ASV Pro, the FT5 Pro, and the Trigger 7 Pro, all of those sticks appear to be slightly heavier and slightly stiffer for the same flex rating. So for example, I use a 75 flex in the ASV Pro. In the AS4 Pro, I actually preferred an 80 flex. So there's something to be said about that. Also, the ASV Pro and a 75 flex is a softer flexing. It's easier to flex than a 75 flex FT5 Pro. So the Supertacks is easier to flex than a jet speed. Ever so slightly. That's been my experience with it. And your mileage may vary, of course. So that's kind of where we're at with it. So in my opinion, the ASV Pro is the best line of sticks that, it's the best Supertacks model that's come out to date. I think it's a very consistent feeling stick. There are no surprises. You know what you're getting with it. It has strengths. It has weaknesses. I think that if you are I think this is really going to come down to, can you load a stick? If you are not comfortable loading a stick, you're probably not going to like this one. If you are somebody that is, taking wrist shots from the blue line, from the top of the circle, if you're somebody who is, a power shooter, I think that this is going to do you well. And I bet you anybody who has a good snapshot to is really going to like this stick more than they think they will. So I do think this is going to be, this is a very unpopular stick. In fact, most of the places I would shop for sticks, you have to special order this. They're not going to be around like the jet speeds and the triggers will be. And that just kind of speaks to their popularity. So again, I think the Supertacks is the black sheep of the CCM model family. But I'm just not seeing the reason why, aside from maybe people aren't that comfortable with, how they shoot the puck. So, and there's always going to be more novice and intermediate players than super advanced elite skaters that are out there. That's just how it goes. So I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I think that if you are currently in an AS4 Pro, you will in fact like the ASV Pro. Assuming you like the AS4 Pro, but it'll feel natural to you. I don't think you have to worry about the new shaft dimensions on the stick. I do believe in part that there is a slight difference in how it feels from the AS4 Pro. I've heard comments about this being a completely different stick. I think there is some truth to that, but probably not enough to sway an AS4 Pro user from getting this stick. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But anyways, that's a lot of talking. I think I'll end the video here. I think it's a great stick. It seems to be pretty durable. I'm going to keep using it. I haven't found another stick that I like better than this one yet. And then, so yeah, just think about what I've said. If you have any questions, comments, as always, get in touch with me. I'm happy to answer your questions or clarify anything. And we'll see you in the next video. Peace.